Rock me, mama, like a wagon wheel. Rock me, mama, any way you feel. Hey.
Madman, you died. Welcome to the afterlife.
Yeah? Great.
So you're okay with it?
Well, I was a paintball prophet on Earth, so that means I'm good up here, right? Just let me know when they're ready.
Wait, who's ready, Prophet?
The paintball gods and goddesses? I'm supposed to make love with them now. I've been reviewing high-end guns recently, and kind of a big deal. And yes, it's the prophecy. I know my testimony. Doritos 1244. For once the prophet's life has passed, the paintball gods will grant them ass. And let's not forget Wall 613. Make the prophet his bed, for in their eternal rest the paint goddesses will favor him with coochies. I know my scripture, great gatekeeper. This is all basic stuff.
Would you look at that? It turns out you are not dead anymore. Nor do I want you to be. You do not understand what it means to be a paintball prophet. I simply summoned you to the realm of the dead to retrieve this, the dangerous power E2. Now,
The paintball gods rejected me.
It looks like Dangerous Power is out of business. And while it's true that it didn't really look like they were connecting too much with modern paintball players, it is true as well that they did shake things up quite violently in the past with their other markers, and they did still have pretty compelling budget markers in the current generation. Now, that's what we're going to look at now. Their last release in the budget entry of markers before folding. There will be another video looking at where it went wrong, because we'll have more information then. But for now, we're going to look at this and ask the question, was it too late to save them, or was it just not good enough?
For under $200, this is really impressive. It manages to pack a good shooting, all-metal, hoseless design in what certainly is a teeny tiny production budget. Your only other options below that price are pretty much blowback electros and rental class markers.
And measured up against those, the E2 is incredibly ahead of the curve. They really did their absolute best, and it shows, to fit as much marker possible into this tiny production budget for a sub $200 marker. Everything here, from the on-off ASA to the trigger to quality of the screws and feed neck and the plumbing, is excellent. Not just for the price, but in general, especially for the price though. Except for one thing, which is the electronics, but we'll get to that later.
Obviously, it's not going to be anything fancy, but a good set of Allens will get you completely into this marker in just a few minutes, faster than a lot of other markers in this price range. Removing the grips reveals a bit of a messy interior, but also how this marker managed its price tag, clearly saving the cost that trimming up wires would have entailed and finding a cheap yet clever and effective way to plumb the air up from the ASA into the body, where it follows a very similar air path to the G5. The regulator is quite good, it's the exact same thing as the G5. This thing, you can shoot pretty consistent on the chrono, and the overall build quality is indeed above its class, but mind you, the $200 marker market is a very low standard. You have a few plastic slash composite parts, but those are your feed neck and eye covers and pretty much it. The feed neck worried me a little bit, but it held up alright, and it too is very good for this price of marker. Same story for the eye covers, detents, but I would be mindful about removing the eye covers at the field and losing the detent springs.
Now with the electronics, the eyes are pretty good. The solenoid is fine. It works just fine. But the board is not. The board is not good. I'll spoil it. The board is where this marker blew its shot. It is not good at all. There's only 2 modes on it, uncapped semi-auto and straight full auto. One of these modes, well, you can't use either mode in a simulated competitive setting like playing X-Ball. You could play Rec Ball with it, but uncapped semi, it's going to be illegal in a lot of fields too if you go past the rate of fire cap. So what you really have is a marker that you can't really use. And that really sucks, because the board exists for it. It just costs more money. And when I asked Dangerous Power before they folded, what the reason for that was, it really just went down to them not wanting to cannibalize this, the G5. But if you get this marker to the point where it could cannibalize this one, what you really need to do is bring this one up instead of keeping this one down. And I think ultimately that form of thinking is what killed Dangerous Power. And here's the actual kicker. This thing, with the drivetrain it has, it outshoots the G5. Not only do I think the shot quality is above the G5, but it also has a better, more refined drivetrain in it. Let's check it out.
While the operating principle is identical, they've really figured out how to tame the extra high 180 psi or so that these markers run on. Remember, this marker is packaged quite traditionally. There's nothing revolutionary here, but it is impressive for the price. Anyway, the drivetrain, same operating principle as the G5 and E1, air sear holds the bolt back, an actuation of the solenoid vents the air sear and allows the bolt forward. The marker fires when the bolt clears the valve, and the bolt resets when the dwell time expires and the air sear is filled up again.
And while the bolt is fast, pretty fast actually, considering there's a lot of pressure behind this breech, it's very light, and the valve stem actually helps with paint handling by making its way into the breech and stabilizing the ball stack. So it helps with paint handling. Paint handling is pretty good on this marker. And speaking of the valve stem, if you remember the turbine kit in the G5, it constricted the expansion of air coming past the valve just to make more use of that air as it leaves. And the result was a bit of a blasty shot. While the G-Series turbine kit constricted the expansion of that gas, what you get with this valve is a more controlled expansion of that gas. And the result is a terrific shot for any marker. Hooray!
Now, mind you that it is not very efficient, but most Dangerous Power spools weren't efficient anyway. Regardless, it shoots nicely still. Check it out with the hind barrel.
What a neat little shooter this E2 is. And when I say little, I really mean it. It is very small in my hands. But it just sucks, man, that this marker, I really wanted to love it. Everything about it, I do love, except for that board. I did get the upgrade board on it just to have it competition legal. But it just really sucks that it doesn't come that way out of the box. And when you start adding the price of the upgrade board onto this price tag, you have other options already, and they do come competition ready out of the box. And it's going to be more difficult for that's going to be a bit more of a difficult sell for this. And like I said, it's just a shame. And the other half of it is that I think that Dangerous Power sort of designed this gun and their G5 II to not be the buyer's main gun. As a matter of fact, to not even be the buyer's gun. A lot of these markers, well, their markers feel like they can fit a younger player's hands or a woman's hands a bit better than your average paintball player, which is an adult male. And while it's good for those demographics to have really good options, which these are great for, maybe their target is off. Maybe they're very well aware that this is a marker that a lot of parents would have bought their kids for Christmas. And that's what they were going for. And it just upsets me that just a little loss in focus had such a big impact on a very important company in paintball. And Dangerous Power, as far as we know, is no longer around. And their last creation was so near, yet so far. The E2, it unfortunately did not meet the mark, despite being almost an excellent marker. But I want to hear your thoughts. Do you think that the E2 would have saved Dangerous Power had it been done differently? I'm not entirely sure that it would have, but had the mindset that would have taken over in their offices and drawing boards when it mattered been there, they probably would have been in a much better position today. Appreciate you guys' viewership. Just don't really have much else to say in terms of the E2, but I do have one more thing to say. Somewhat fitting with the Dangerous Power name, be dangerous. Good people need to be dangerous and competent. Be competent and use your competence for good, because you might not know it, but most of the bad guys in history thought they were doing the right thing. And that's all I've got for you. If you want to like, go ahead and like. If you didn't like, dislike. Let me know what you think. Subscribe if you haven't, because we are making videos the first of each month, and I'll be happy to see you guys there. Take good care of yourself, take good care of yourselves, and be competent.